So what does that mean? It means that we need to know how to help people feel psychologically safe. So to keep in mind, feeling threatened triggers downshifting, so feeling safe triggers upshifting. So feeling psychologically safe, understood, empathy and compassion from the other person, and a sense of control. Now, the reason why empathy and compassion is so important is you think about this as whether when you've been a patient or a customer or somebody trying to get tech support. If you don't feel like the quote helping professional really cares about your dilemma, that's a helpless feeling because they're not really invested in helping you. So you feel helpless, like I'm not going to get my problem solved. So that's why communicate empathy and compassion is so important. And then again, a sense of control, as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't mean that they're controlling the conversation or the relationship. It means they need to feel like they have a say in the conversation. They need to feel by your expressing understanding, compassion, showing that you understand them, they feel not helpless. That's an awkward way of saying it. It's more what's more accurate for the experience that you're trying to create is not helpless versus they have control. And I make that distinction because a lot of times people get sort of freaked out by like, are you saying the client or the patient is supposed to have control? I'm not saying that. So here's something that's really fascinating that offers clues about what we need to do when somebody is upset, and especially, excuse me, especially if it's somebody in a vulnerable situation, because feeling vulnerable can trigger downshifting. Researchers found, now check this out, when they listened to audio clips of doctors talking to patients, they could predict with 100% accuracy who got sued and who didn't. What makes the research even more fascinating is the audio clips were doctored, so the sound technician was able to remove the frequencies in which words are transmitted on, so all you could hear was voice tone. You couldn't hear what the doctor said, just the voice tone. In listening to 3 20-second clips of voice tone and nothing else, they could predict with 100% accuracy who got sued and who didn't. And as you see with the first point, it had nothing to do with whether they blundered in the surgery or missed, somebody had cancer in the films. It was their attitude. What I call the malpractice kiss of death is when the doc had an attitude of dominance and lack of concern. And so you think about if this person that you're feeling vulnerable because they're the professional and you're the person seeking help, if they're treating you in this like godly or godlike imperial kind of demeanor, and they don't really seem concerned about your well-being, how helpless that feels, that you have to weigh and measure, do I ask this question because they're just going to demean me and put down what I say, or ignore me, interrupt me, etc. And so when something went wrong, that's who people wanted to punish, not the docs who actually made potentially life-ending mistakes. So what does that speak to? That speaks to why it's so important when somebody's downshifted, when somebody's upset, especially if they're feeling vulnerable, how important it is not to try to come across as dominant, especially if you have a really strong personality. That's why it's important to kind of gentle that effect when somebody's really upset and vulnerable, and really dial up the concern and empathy. So that's what upset people want and need. What about what common mistakes to avoid?